Hello, and welcome to Pod of the Week, a place where I get to share my thoughts on pods I think you need to know about. In continuing with profiling podcasts that will make your life amazing, or at least add value to your life, then I want to invite you to another Afrocentric podcast which highlights the beauty of Africa and our Renaissance in essence. And this podcast is called the African Renaissance Podcast, hosted by Dr Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. And yes, we all are aware of his political roots, and for some it may put you off, but I think it's an important conversation and an important voice in this space. The doc engages with amazing Africans across the continent, from like Thabo Mbeki, Trevor, Manuel, other creators like James Ngcobo. Yes, it is political, and maybe for some this is jarring or something I feel like it's just not important, but I think it's a good conversation just to be in and amongst, and helps you rethink and see the world in a different way and help understand how other people may see the world in a different way. So, if you want to know what it sounds like, have a listen.
Let's first agree with you. The scholarship on decolonization is very mediocre in South Africa today. In fact, I would go further than you and say that it is now used, for career advancement. So people who write about decolonization, sometimes decoloniality. In fact, they mostly prefer the language of decoloniality. It is nothing but a ruse, for upward mobility within the cadres. It's a scholarship that, basically mimics, or repeats the same old methods of, according to Walter Mignolo, decolonization is this. According to Maldonado Torres, it is this. It is not in any way embedded in the lived experience of the black colonized that people are talking about. In fact, you can see the distance between the people who write, who make black people who are colonized. They make them objects, of their study. Whereas they are saying they want to decolonize, and one of the things they want to do in decolonizing is to breach the subject-object Cartesian distinction. But when you look at their writings, they still reproduce the black colonized as basically the objects of their study. So I'm just going beyond the fact that, there's nothing really. There is, as a body of thought, there are individual good works here and there. They are too far between, so that we don't get into trouble. I won't mention those good, but there's good scholarship in between. But as a body of thought, as a recognizable body of thought, basically decoloniality in South Africa is a ruse. It's in the language of young people, it's a scam. It's a scam, Now, let us get back to the question that we are asking, which is, what is the relationship between decolonization and science?
This is, it seems to me, a very important question. It is. Because epistemically, after we have to actually begin with, what are we doing about the fact of having to know, when we say we are decolonizing, that we have to know ourselves, our history, that we have to produce out of this knowledge solutions to the water problem, to the bread problem, to artistic creativity, to beauty, to love. But the initial a priori qualification, or rather question of what it is to know. And the West's answer is science. It seems, or at least the West says that this science is theirs. But I'm sure we all know that's another lie. But what is the relationship between decolonization and science? Because, Jesus, are these chaps even scientists?
Which ones?
The ones who are doing decolonization.
So if you're looking for a podcast with a fascinating conversation, an Afrocentric podcast which highlights our good and earmarks, I guess, our bad, but also what we're doing to reimagine ourselves and compete on the global stage with fascinating, important people from the African continent, then this is the podcast for you. So remember, podcasts are not for some, they're for everyone.